Hi, this is Mike Ferguson with Milestones Hand Painted Keepsakes. Today Jane is going to demonstrate a basic radial 8-dot pattern in 3 colors. We're starting with a stone which has been prepped with a base coat of black acrylic paint. Okay, so grab your 8-dot pip and place it on your stone in the desired position. Using a white charcoal pencil, mark the center hole and each of the 8 surrounding pattern holes in our pip. This helps to establish the correct angle for each of our radial guidelines. Using a flexible measuring tape and a white charcoal pencil, draw lines connecting the opposite pairs of dots through the center dot. This will establish the arms for our radial design and ensure that they're evenly spaced. Once our painted design is dry, these white charcoal lines will come off very easily with just a wet cotton swab. For today's design, we're using a very simple palette of medium blue tinted down into 3 shades, the lightest shade being almost white. Use a large dotting tool and our darkest shade of blue to place a dot at the center point where all of our lines intersect. Today we're creating a basic radial pattern, so all of our dots will be placed on our guidelines.
A pretty small medium blue dot right on the guidelines at about the same distance from the center dot. So right here I'm focusing mostly on getting the size of the dot to be the same and the spacing from the center dot to be the same. And I'm using the guidelines for where I'm going to place each dot. I like to turn the stone as I go so that I'm not reaching over the areas that I've already painted, and helps me keep my fingers out of the paint, my shadow from falling on the stone. Okay, so I'm going to place a very light colored dot, smaller than the center dot but bigger than the first one we placed. I'm going to put that on each of the guidelines. And here again I'm focusing mostly on placement and trying to keep the size the same. You can see on some of them I go back, get a little more paint and dip the dot again, and that will make it a little bit larger. It's one of those tricks that you just have to practice. You get a feel for it as you go along. Don't be intimidated by having to be perfect, because the surface of the stone isn't perfect. The placement isn't always going to be perfect. About halfway through every stone I feel like wiping everything off and starting over again. I have to fight that urge. But I do, and you know what? It usually works out just fine. So now I'm going back to the darkest blue. I'm going to place another dot outside that white one. And you just keep going around. Trying again we're working on spacing and size of the dots. I like to use these rounded tools because I think it gives the dot a very nice dome on it, which makes it good for doing top dots, which we'll get to in another tutorial. We'll go back again and go back to the middle color. That one's a little small, so I'm going to dip it again, dot again. And as long as you do that right after you do the first one, you'll be okay. You just can't let the paint dry. I try to hold my tool pretty much vertical, and I always try to remember that I'm placing the dot. I'm not stamping it. You don't have to use a lot of pressure, actually just taking the drip of paint that's on the tip of the ball tool and you place that on the dot or on the stone. So I'm just going to vary the size again. And you can choose to make your dots whatever size you like, because as we said, we're just focusing on placement and trying to get each row of dots about the same size and landed in the right place. When you get to the edges of a stone, like on this one, I'm getting kind of far out to the edge. Sometimes the paint will have a tendency to run if it's too thin, so you have to keep that in mind too. I'm going to finish it off with just one more row of dots, and it's going to be in the very light color. Our 8-dot pattern of radial lines using just one color and 3 different shades.